Hello and welcome to a late night edition of the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. Sorry I had to reschedule you again. I know we just had the holiday. I know this messes things up. But, Jim, we did say we were going to do this a little bit more for our California people. So let's hope they take advantage. How are you, Jim? Jim Stam, co-host of the show, always here. How are you?
Always, man. First of all, welcome back home to the Berg. You have been in Boston. I don't even know if I want to attempt a Boston accent. It probably doesn't come out very good, but it'd be wicked smart if I could.
Yeah, well, there's not a whole lot of people that sound like that around anymore. like it was
Oh, really? Well,
no, it was at least not that I ran into. I mean, working in the hotels, that tends to be the case. You don't leave that little bubble, so you only see who works in the hotel. You don't
right.
necessarily see the locals. But yeah, I'm happy to be done with it for a while and start focusing on the trash that Ben Charrington's going to feed us. So let's do it. And Dave says, love the Friday night late time. I do too, Dave. I think
It's
this
for
is going to
you,
be
Dave.
fun.
It's all for you, buddy.
Yeah, it puts Jim and I in a special mood. It gets Jim an opportunity to get all his obligations out of the way and start dipping into the brew a little bit.
Yeah.
Gives me an opportunity to, just drink coffee oddly enough at 8:30 at night and try to stay awake long enough to do this, huh? So Kevin's here. He says, love the show. Kevin, we love you back. Word.
Thanks, Kevin.
And Melman, break out the champagne. We got Ali Sanchez.
Cheers. Cheers,
Go.
everybody. Cheers.
All right. Somebody had to break the news. It might as well be Melman. Okay, here we are. Ali Sanchez. That's our big signing, Jim. That's it. Hands in the air. Game over. There's that 14-game improvement we're looking for, right?
Pack it up. We are done, and it's just basically time. I mean, where do I get my pennant at?
All right. Well, let's start by taking it semi-seriously before we end up going where we usually end up going. Ali Sanchez last year played his entire season in AAA for Arizona, 67 games, 267 plate appearances, 311 batting average, 492 slug, which I think everyone finds sexy, even in a AAA player, and an 866 OPS. My friends, that's not bad. That's not bad, okay? That's a very good AAA player. The Pirates went ahead and signed him to a major league deal, and he has no options. So, my friends, what are they doing here? Jim, it smells to me like a backup catcher competition to start with, right?
Well, Ali Sanchez and Pirate fans are very similar. We're all out of options. So we are stuck with each other at this point. Yeah, first of all, I did see that the numbers he put up, someone had said that league typically has some big offensive numbers in it. So, just throwing that out there. I didn't have a chance to look at that part of it. But, I mean, Ben Sherrington sure seems to like certain guys, does he not? Because this is Ali Sanchez's second time around in less than a year.
Right. And I guess I'm a little thrown back by the major league signing. I don't mind the depth. I actually think that's smart. I don't mind giving Jason DeLay some competition. I think that's smart. I think it's pretty clear Jason DeLay's bat is only ever going to be so much, right? So of course you give him a little competition, and defensively, Ali Sanchez is pretty comparable.
Right. That's actually where I think offensive numbers, whatever, I think that's where his real value is, obviously.
Sure, but that's where Jason DeLay's real value is too, and it's more major league proven than Ali Sanchez is. I can say that for sure. So,
yeah,
if nothing else, it's a curious move, right? I mean, of all the things that you would think they'd sign as their first major league acquisition this offseason, a catcher was not on my bingo card for a couple reasons, at least not yet. I mean,
right.
Where does your head immediately race to, Jim?
Well, like you said, it's the last thing I expected. They haven't been active at all. We're painfully aware of that at this point. Which, by the way, I don't know if that's that uncommon. Maybe we'll dive into that too.
We're gonna have to, yeah, because
Yeah,
like Daniel here already is like, so we signed 3 players this winter and all of them are garbage, to put it kindly. Charrington isn't convinced, but Daniel, please stick with us. This is a long show. First 8 minutes, we're gonna do a little bit of newsy stuff. We'll get into that fun stuff later. I promise.
yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, no. Look, if it's just for depth organizationally, I don't see a problem with that. The problem is it's like the first thing we're hearing out of anything Pirate related, other than Hatch signing over in Japan. But other than that, it's so, Pirate fans just want something that's considered to be notable, and this isn't it, clearly.
Right. And Rodri Munoz getting picked up is basically it's a replacement for Hatch. It's depth. That's all it is. Nothing to worry about. There's pickups like that every year. Sometimes they don't even make it to spring. They'll end up getting DFA'd before they've ever seen any field for the Pirates. So like, don't worry about that stuff. I don't even think it's worth reporting. Honestly, you have to for the roster spots and stuff. You got to talk about all that jazz, but guys like that are going to come and go, and you're going to see the team pick guys like that up. Sometimes they'll pick them up in the hopes that they can squeak them through. They have no intention whatsoever of trying to get them to stick on their roster, but you want AAA depth too.
Well, it's not like they don't have room for him right this second anyway.
Right. It doesn't really matter. Ali Sanchez, though, made me think of something else, Jim. Last week we did a show completely filled with trade proposals, right? Mm-hmm. And we tiptoed around like sending out some pretty big pieces. And I'm not saying that Ali Sanchez is an answer or anything, but I am saying fortifying a certain position makes a few scenarios kind of a little more interesting, doesn't it?
Maybe we should talk about that, because I'm thinking we could make arguments all the way down to Ali Sanchez, Gary Sanchez. Geez, that was a slip. Freddie, I might as well throw Freddie Sanchez.
Well, that's the next signing. They're going to go and get him next.
Freddie Sanchez?
Either or. You want to have as many catchers as possible. So let's get Gary Sanchez too. We'll have 5 catchers. It'll just be the greatest team ever, filled with super utility catchers. Let's take a quick break and come back. Let's talk about some of the potential implications of them fortifying this position at the major league level.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Make sure that you give us a like down there. Make sure that you rate us if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, and go ahead and subscribe to it and turn on the notifications. We're not going to send you anything else. I mean, I'm not going to ask you who you're voting for in a couple months or anything. just subscribe so you don't miss a show, because Jim and I, every once in a while, need to move this stuff around. And I wanted to get to a couple comments before we dive back in. Daniel here is saying, isn't it too early to start panicking? The winter meetings are still ahead. Yep, Daniel, much like I said earlier to the other gentleman there, we're going to get to that. We're just kind of trying to tackle the news first. It is pretty important. And
we're trust me, we're going to get in. We're going to get into that. And okay, maybe that's where it was. Michael might have said that. I saw.
Michael throws up Sanchez's WRC plus was only 108. It was extremely hitter friendly in that ballpark. And yes, absolutely true. I don't take anything from this. Like, I don't think they're thinking this is revolutionizing the offense of the team. I really think this is a defender, somebody they're bringing in to fortify. And why would you be fortifying Jim? We've already got Andy Rodriguez back there. Kind of took hold of the catching position, I thought, last year, defensively anyway. At the plate, maybe not so much, but he's your switch hitter. Now you got 3 right-handed catchers, right? You're claiming Henry Davis is one, which, boy, if this doesn't just at least scream we're done with that game, I don't know what does. Right?
It's so, Gary, I mean, like, we're talking 4 catchers, like you said, 3 right-handed ones, and he's a switch hitter. You got one of them out in right field who you say is still a catcher.
Right.
This could be taken a lot of different ways. Could it not?
Yeah. So that's scenario number 1 is Henry Davis is done catching. Whatever they needed to see, they've seen. That would be my first thought from that. Scenario number 2 is competition for Jason DeLay. He's a really good defensive backup, but maybe they think they need more. Scenario number 3 is Jason DeLay has options. Ali Sanchez doesn't. Perhaps Ali Sanchez is the backup and you keep Jason DeLay stashed in AAA because you really don't have any catching depth close except Abraham Nunez or Gutierrez, and I'm not 100% sure.
We've now got Abraham Nunez and Freddie Sanchez into this show, and that is why you tune in, because Gary and I have been around enough and along with some of you poor bastards that are our age to name these types of guys.
That's right. And you got Carter Benz too, who they sent to Arizona Fall League and really didn't do much of anything, to be honest. Kind of didn't play all that much. I mean, Carter Benz has never impressed me. So I can understand wanting to like fortify the position, get yourself like some extra help there just so that you don't have to go to the waiver wire should something happen, right? I don't mind that at all. I guess my question would be, does this open the door for them to potentially think about moving Endy and or Henry in a trade? There's no secret they need starting pitching. There's no secret that trades are going to be one way they go about getting them. There's no secret that you got to trade something worth something to get something worth something. Henry Davis is worth something. Endy's worth something. We went over those values last week, right?
Right.
So how do you approach this? Does this open that door, or is this just a depth signing and the talent level difference here is so drastic there's no reason to even draw any kind of conclusion there?
I think, Gary, you could talk me in to any of those scenarios being viable here. I really don't know which is accurate. Maybe they all are to an extent. To an extent. And I will say, if nothing else, it's right before the winter meetings. And if you're just looking to be as flexible as possible with the trade market, and both of us staunchly believe that that is where this team is going to make the moves that we hope that they are going to make, then at least it gives you that flexibility heading into that to be open to any type of scenario.
I mean, I'll put it this way. I think trades are what Ben Cherington's allowed to spend. That's what I think. I don't think this payroll is going to go above 85, 90 this year. And I think Ben Cherington's best bet for acquiring talent is via the trade. And you have to move something good for that. And I think that's going to be prospects, man. It's either going to be that, or he's going to have to consider rolling the dice on moving something big, like that carries a salary. And they've only got 2 of those. So
right. I mean, and both of those are pretty good bargains for Major League Baseball players of their caliber.
Right.
So there is quite a bit of value in those two guys, but I'm thinking it's more along the lines of you've got to be able and willing to part with some prospects here.
Here's a comment from David. We get this all the time, for real. This is insane. Trade Davis or Endy, the two bats that have, I'm guessing,
Power.
you mean power potential.
Yeah.
No trade one of the 2,000 second basemen they have. We've proposed that as well. When you look at the values for what they actually have, I'm sorry, I can trade one Henry, or I can trade something else of high value, like a starting pitching prospect or something, and package them with a second baseman. But none of their second basemen are going to equal what you want. Termar Johnson is the guy if you want to do that.
If you want to talk about anybody that could bring you back real value, it's Termar Johnson.
Yeah.
Now,
and this is another one here. There's no chance Bucks trade Henry or Endy. Bet you there is. I guarantee you there is.
I agree.
Because it's the currency they have. It doesn't mean they will do it, but they will absolutely have people that are interested in them, and they will absolutely be the types of values that we send out to get pitching. What people don't understand about this rebuild is, I mean, Jim, you know, anybody that's listening to this show, they've heard us say this all along. At some point, you have to balance the powers. You want everything to come together at the same time so that you have 26 guys that you developed and acquired, and they're all here and they're all winning together, kind of like what Baltimore did last year. And even they didn't have all 26. They had 20-some, which is great.
The odds of pitching and hitting arriving at the same time are so infinitesimally small, even for the best organizations. You have to be able to dip into the other side where you have some excess, or look, it's just where the Pirates have a little bit of excess. Otherwise, where else are you getting it from other than pitching? And they probably don't want to give up as much pitching.
No, and they're not going to want to give up the pitching that's valuable, that's for sure.
Right.
Like, your most valuable asset is Paul Skeens. No way. Just no way. Like, you haven't even really gotten to see what he can do as a minor leaguer yet.
How do you look? I know you could get a evaluation on Paul Skeens, but let's be honest here. What's a team? I don't even know what that looks like, Gary. I really don't. From either the Pirates side or another team, like, in that case, why would you draft him in the first place? How do you even make that work? To me, it
doesn't make any sense.
Here's what I will say, and I firmly believe this. Other than Paul Skeens, there should not be anybody that you deem to be untouchable on the Pirates. If it makes this team better. No, I'm saying in the minors.
In the minors? Okay. All right. Well, that's what you said on the Pirates specifically. That's why I was like,
No,
I get what you're saying now. You're saying prospects.
I am of the point, at the point with this is, you better be ready to listen on almost everybody in your minor league system if you think you're going to make any kind of a jump soon.
I totally agree. And I think that they absolutely have to do so. That doesn't mean I think they have to make a move right now. Let's talk a little bit about why 2024 means so much, right? I mean, why are we all so hell-bent that this is the year they've got to make some kind of a push to go to the playoffs, right? Besides the fact that you and I want that every year, right?
Right.
We'd love for that to happen every year. But why this year? Why have we decided this is the year that the Pirates have to go for it?
Because they said it.
Because they said it. That's why. And they were given an opportunity to backtrack on that, and they doubled down on it. And they've since tripled down on specifically what they're going to go after, and talked about the upgrade and quality of it. They set themselves up for the scrutiny right now. They did, not me. This isn't the media creating some kind of environment for them to live in. The Pirates did this.
And that's such an important distinction because, we both get comments a lot. And sometimes it's like, you expect them to do this? Well, listen, they've now said it. So whether I expect it or not, they're the ones who said it. So that's what we're going to talk about. Am I sitting around just willy-nilly thinking up scenarios? No. You said it. Now we're going to talk about it. And now that's the standard you'll be held to.
Right.
Doesn't mean that I think I have a huge faith in it that it will happen. It's just that you said it would.
Absolutely. That's the perfect way to say it. It's not about us believing it. Because I see some comments in here, even like, let's see if I can find it really quickly from David. People thinking the Pirates are going to spend any real money are crazy. I understand where that comment comes from. And by real money, all I'm going to point out is that is a statement right there that begs to have a goalpost moved. Because whatever they spend isn't going to be real money if you didn't want it to be. And whatever they don't spend is just going to back up your statement. You're right either way. Welcome to the show, Cody. That's how you do journalism. But I would say people thinking they're going to spend enough to do exactly what Ben Cherington said aren't crazy. In fact, we did an entire show telling them what we thought that would take. Ben Cherington said he wanted the playoffs. We told them what we thought would be would get this team to the playoffs. It's more expensive than I think they'll spend. I don't think they'll spend what we told them to. But we sure as hell know where we think they need to go in order to get there.
Well, that's
right?
Just it. Is like, I think that's what bothers me is that people parachute in on conversations and they think that we fully expect it. No, again, it's not what we think. It's what you said. And so now we're going to talk about that. And there's a big difference there. We'll see how it shakes out. But,
to their credit, have you seen anybody from the team saying, hey, stop it. Stop expecting us to do things? Nobody said that. Right? We're just panicking because nothing's happening. Here it is, December 1st.
And let me say this about nothing happening. Okay, the winter meetings start on Monday. Okay.
Right.
So.
And the GM meetings were stopped on account of poop.
Yeah, a real shitstorm if you want to go back and look at it. Yeah, so a stomach bug stopped that. There's 3 days coming up. And I've got news for people. If you look back at the winter meetings, I'm not defending the Pirates, okay? But there are times where the winter meetings, nothing big happens. It's not unheard of. And what I will say about this is this year, with all the uncertainty about what's going on with RSNs and the money with TV deals and all that, it is having some kind of effect on where things are at. Now,
the things are going to start falling here at the winter meetings. Shohei's probably going to make his decision here. You're going to start to see that flesh out into trades. All of a sudden, you're going to start to hear Trevor Bauer's name because his agent's going to pop up at the winter meetings and start wrestling up his name and seeing who's interested.
You get all these executives in a room, in a hotel. Things start moving.
Yeah, and your GM could do nothing more than pick the wrong table to sit down for lunch at. And all of a sudden he's in on somebody because he's sitting there with somebody's agent.
That's just it. You just never know when you get all these different people and personalities in a room. You never know how that's going to unfold. I will say, if we get to the end of the winter meetings, it's only 3 days. There's still nothing going on. it tells me that the Pirates are trying to do something trade-wise
Right.
way more than anything else.
I can't promise I'm going to read this whole comment, but I'm going to bring it up here. It's very long, but it's from Dan, and it's a good one. I read it, and that's partially why I wasn't paying as close attention to you as I should have been, Jim. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm used to it. Trust me, in this house.
Very few Buccos are untouchable, but we're desperate for a young, talented catcher. Maybe Endy's cup of coffee was a flash in the pan, but I wouldn't want to trade a catcher we'd be reading about in a few years on a playoff team. I can only surmise that Davis fell far short of the organization's expectations. If we can get a quality pitcher for him, I can live with that. I'm not saying I'd be happy about it, but I can live with it. Dan, I think that's a very healthy way to look at it, to be honest with you. It's not like it's a happy day when you trade a first-round pick if you do that. It's not like we're saying that lightly either. It's not like I say that and I go, finally, they can get rid of that Davis. He's been a thorn in my side ever since they drafted him. Ain't like that at all. I think Davis has a bright future. I don't think Davis is a catcher. That's all. And I think that puts him in a weird spot on this team because there is no room for him as a DH this year. And if you're going to shove him in right field, well, he better look a lot better than he did this year. And if you're going to shove him at first base, well, he better not be a problem there too. And if your plan is to use him as some kind of part-time catcher, well, he better be okay back there. And he better get enough at bats, and it better not mess with his head so much that it ruins his bat. His timeline and the way he was handled and how quickly he got here with one side of his discipline in order has thrown him off kilter to the point where, yes, I think he has made it potentially easier to trade him than Endy. Even if I don't think that their ceilings match. I actually think Henry's ceiling is higher offensively.
We'll look back on the Henry Davis thing and the Endy thing, and it'll be really interesting, Gary, if we're still doing this show, if people will have us do this show down the road, right? Will it not be? It'll be kind of fascinating because they had both of them coming up. Both of them offensively were doing well. You've only got one position between the both of them.
Yeah.
It'll be kind of interesting to see how we look back on this whole thing. I think the Henry Davis thing could have been handled better. Yeah, but there's some hindsight 2020 stuff going on there too when it doesn't work like you want it to. And I don't want to trade Henry Davis.
No, there's definitely just oddity there, right? And I think both of them, it's fair to say, they showed us flashes. We saw some of the offensive upside there. Neither of them took off in major leagues, and that doesn't mean that I think they never will. But I will say, if you really want to win, you really want to win, you really want this team to challenge for a playoff, well, we're awfully quick to say that those two are locked in great and starting caliber right now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying what they did with Ali Sanchez helps that. It doesn't. But I am saying, if anything, maybe that's why you wouldn't trade them, is because it's too early to know if either of them are going to pan out.
It's a risk, man. It is. But at some point, man, you have to be willing to take some chances. It's the only way that teams like the Pirates are going to be able to get where they want to go. Maybe.
Right.
And I would just say this, will it make me sick if Henry Davis or Endy gets traded and they turn around and absolutely kill it? Yeah. But I'm already disappointed with the Pirates my whole life, pretty much. How much worse can it get? I mean, I don't want to be afraid of failing when there's already been a lot of failure. I guess I'll live with it.
I will say that one of the things that I feel the team probably screwed up a lot under Neil Huntington early was holding on to prospects and hugging them a little too much. And he probably could have moved forward a little bit more into that 2013. Really could have leaned into it a little more, I felt. They could have addressed first base a little more properly, I would say. You know?
Sure.
So there was some missteps there, I felt, and I felt hugging prospects caused it. For instance, and this would have killed at the time. This would have broken some people's souls, but this team needed stuff. They had Josh Bell in the minors, and he was a huge prospect, and everybody and their mother wanted him. He, being drafted by the Pirates, pissed off the system so bad that they changed it because that's how coveted he was. That team needed help right then and there. And they chose right then and there to care more about what happened in 2016 and 2017 with this player than they did what happened in 2014 and 15 with this team. I'm not saying that I can predict what they would have gotten for him, but wouldn't it have been nice to have another stud pitcher? Wouldn't it have been nice to have a locked-on first baseman for more than 6 weeks? Wouldn't it have been nice to have like an upgrade over Jordy Mercer even at shortstop?
It's interesting because the Pirates are so risk averse and conservative, it's funny. The fan base hates it.
Right.
But they're also held hostage by it themselves.
You're forced to grow with
way.
these kids. Most fan bases, and this is something you don't realize unless you travel. And Jim, you can speak to this because you lived in Cardinalville, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Okay, but you've seen they don't pay attention to prospects until they're like right on the doorstep. You might, I mean, there are people like, yeah, they're real prospect nerds, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
But the fan base at large, you know, when they see about prospects, when their local broadcast brings them up and says, look what these guys did last week. And they go, wow, that's cool. You know, when they heard about Jordan Walker about a year before he got here.
Right.
Like they weren't like screaming and panicking about Jordan Walker. When they traded Randy Arozarena, ain't nobody blinked in St. Louis.
No, but that's the risk, right? That so many fans are afraid of if that happens.
No, but we bust their balls about that. Oh, you lost Randy Arozarena. Oh, you idiots. Yeah, they're idiots, I guess. They're fine.
Yeah,
they can take care of it. And yeah, they lost Randy, but Tampa's trying to trade him right now. They'll probably get him back. I mean, like,
right. It's just one of those things where I would say this. As a Pirate fan, nothing really scares me at this point.
Oh, Dave's got a great one, dude.
Okay, good.
I remember when they traded Moises Alou and a number 1 draft pick. Yeah, you could do that back then. Willie Green to the Expos for Zane Smith. I remember that too. And I remember Zane Smith not being a great pitcher. But you know what he was? A lefty. And they needed one. And they needed one for the playoffs.
And he was a grinder.
Boy, did he deliver too.
He was a grinder.
Yep, and it hurt. And it hurt watching Moises destroy up there. It really did. And we always regretted it. And I can remember always mentioning it. But, man, we needed Zane Smith right then and there. You know, like, you're going to lose some of these trades. You just are. And I don't know how else to say it besides embrace it. It's not ever going to feel good.
And look, if you have zero faith in the Pirates to get it right and do it right and make the right call,
Welcome to
Well,
the club.
yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you about that because, you know, the proof will be how it turns out. I could tell you that it could easily blow up in their face, but you know
Well,
what? So has many other things.
it really could. Let's take one more break. When we come back, let's talk about what's going on in the NL Central because, my God, they're all so much better.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Jim and Gary with you. We're going to start out with a comment here from Nicholas McKee because every once in a while I spout out crap that I assume everyone knows, and he didn't. So let's make sure we tell him. What were you referring to with drafting Josh Bell and how the system was pissed off? Curious and unfamiliar with that. Okay, so Josh Bell signed a $5 million bonus with the Pittsburgh Pirates to be a second-round selection with them. He was going to go to school, and then he sharded teams like Boston and New York and would not sign with them and signed with the Pirates, who gave him a ridiculous bonus at the time. $5 million for a second-rounder was unheard of, crazy. And yes, your Pittsburgh Pirates have and always have spent more in the draft than everyone else. Part of that's because they've sucked bad enough to be at the top. But
Which, by the way, they should allow that again. God,
Right.
everything else is set up against the Richie or for the Richie Riches. At least let
Yes.
those teams do that.
Well, to finish my story, Nicholas, for you, here's what happened. Major League Baseball introduced the slotting system after that in the next collective bargaining agreement so that teams could not basically draft people lower, give them huge bonuses, and woo them away from some of the other teams that came a calling earlier on. That's basically it. They tried to take away one game. Problem is, it didn't really work. Ben Cherington kind of did it with the 2021 draft, so you can still do it. You just can't do it to the ridiculous level that you did. That's all. But teams, I think, should be able to, and they should be able to trade their draft picks too. I think that would change a lot of things about tanking in general and what happens in baseball. I think it would screw a lot of things up. And let me see if Melman can sum it up better than me. Baseball execs were furious about the Bell signing. It was the final straw that caused the current slotting system. Yeah, he said it much nicer than me, or she. I can't tell which is which. So there you go. Okay, so the NL Central, Jim. The Cardinals really are the only ones that have done anything.
It's on fire. It's on fire, according to, I forget which baseball guy said that.
Yeah, the Heyman. So
was it? Okay.
Yeah, so you of course know it's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what I think's funny about that. The Brewers really have done nothing but subtract, and then they've talked about extending their dude, Churios, who I think is going to be great. Really do.
They did get that done, I think, right?
Did they actually get it done? I know it was just a rumor this morning. I didn't know if it.
Okay, well maybe not, because I thought it was a done deal.
I thought you were going to talk longer, so I took a drink of my coffee. So I'm sorry.
Okay. Regardless,
that's really all they've done. Now, it's a questionable move for me. He's in Double-A. I mean, I'm fine with signing a prospect early. I really am. And maybe they're just that confident that they're going to bring him up and start him next year and try to get on the bandwagon of getting that number one pick. They really could do something like that. He is really that kind of talent. So maybe that's what they're doing. I think it's probably a year premature, but maybe they felt like after he reached the league, there's no way it was going to happen. So kudos to them. The Brewers never, ever cheat their fan base, ever. So I'm very envious of that fan base. The Reds have signed some pitchers. Nothing that really knocked my socks off. They definitely needed help there. They've probably made their team a little better. They're talking about trading Jonathan India, Rookie of the Year, a few years ago. For those of you that are still tightly hugging prospects, acting like they can't be moved and they'll definitely be a part of this forever, that would be like the Pirates trading Jack Sawinski. A young kid that you kind of brought along and did really well for you. Now, India's fallen on tough times. And the Reds have a tendency sometimes to jump in a little bit before they're ready. I think their pitching is probably primed to get punched in the mouth for the second year go around. That tends to happen with pitchers, and boy, they've got a lot of them doing that. So I think that's why you're seeing them fortifying with some veterans a little bit, and that's not a bad thing. The Brewers, though, I think they're going to have to continue to move forward with the idea that Burns is gone. That might cause them to even go a little further and trade, some other guys who are borderline there, like Adames or something.
I think it sounds like they've had a little bit of second thoughts about what they might do, but I think reality will set in for them. I think we're still headed that direction with them. And I would say that with St. Louis, you knew they were going to do something. I mean, I give them
but let's
credit.
talk about that something, because is it worth it? Really?
No, but I give them credit for at least being aggressive. I do like Sonny Gray. That contract is structured really, really curiously, by the way. I don't know if you saw it, but
I saw it. Slow this year, and then big the next two. Sonny Gray is a great pitcher. There's no qualms there. He's a good get, and anybody that got him, is going to probably be pretty happy. The other two, though, the Cardinals kind of screwed the market up. They really did.
But you knew Gary, you knew somebody was going to do that.
I didn't think anybody would pay Lance Lynn that kind of money.
I thought teams would get carried, maybe not specifically Lance Lynn, but I thought teams would get stupid.
I thought teams would get stupid when they got desperate, not at the beginning. Lance Lynn,
they are a little bit desperate.
Lance Lynn for that much money. They're desperate with a board this full is insane to even think for a team that has money. Lance Lynn, to me, what they gave him screws the market, because everybody else who's up now that knows they're better than Lance Lynn, and that list is pretty big, ain't even going to entertain less than $10 million. And these guys aren't people that should be making $10 million. I'm sorry, they're not. So he screwed it up at least until they get the ball rolling again on people. And then they're like, somebody's going to have to convince them the Cardinals are insane, because that's too much to pay for Gibson, and that's too much to pay for Lynn. Now, if the Pirates did it, I'd be telling you, they added a bunch of innings. It was a good thing. That's what they needed to do. That said, for the Cardinals, I don't know. I think they shot a little low, to be honest with you, and I think they're stuck with some stuff they don't want.
That may be true that they set their sights a little low. I can see that as being part of it. Now, would it shock me if Lance Lynn has a great year, because the Cardinals seem to always pull the best out of somebody? No, but that's not guaranteed by any stretch either. He could have a Lance Lynn year that he just had.
Yeah, and you could say they're familiar with Lance Lynn. They've had him in their system before, obviously.
Right.
That said, in the option year, who cares about that too? I mean, he won't be here next year probably if he stinks. I just look at it, and to me, it's so early in the offseason to overpay visibly for a guy. Nobody thought he was going to get that kind of money. And to me, if he's getting that kind of money, let somebody else be the idiot. Lance Lynn was awful last year. Awful.
I think he just gave up another home run.
Yeah, it was no joke, man. It was really bad. So I don't want to sit here and act like the Cardinals are automatically a gauntlet, but the Cardinals are the only team that has a fleshed out 5-man starting rotation right this second. So how can I sit here and tell you that they're anything but the front runner? They are. They made themselves the front runner right there.
It's interesting. I just saw something where they said they may not be done.
They definitely aren't done. They put Mets on the block, and he's their number 5 starter, and he had a good season last year.
It wouldn't shock me. And we haven't seen what the Cubs are going to do either. It sounds like they are putting in, throwing their hat in on some guys. So I think Gary, let's touch on this real quick. I think this is a situation with the Pirates and Pirate fans, and I get this totally. They're just out of patience. And then the only thing that was seemingly happening in baseball was in the NL Central.
Yeah.
So like you've got this twofold situation of like Pirate fans are over it, which I totally get. They want something to happen. And then it's been slow for the off season. And then it just so happened to be the NL Central teams were doing something about it. It was mainly the Cardinals, but that sent a lot of Pirate fans over the edge.
Right.
It really did.
Like Billy says here, once the Pirates get at least 2 good starters, he'll be okay with a reclamation project. I totally agree with that. I mean, I would guess what I would say is like, well, we're envious of the Cardinals. They started with 2 of those and ended up getting their bigger guy. The difference is the Cardinals were always going to get their bigger guy. That was going to happen. Like, I don't think anybody in Cardinalville was like, oh, Lance Lynn, we're set. I mean, they knew right away they were going to get somebody else.
That was the appetizer.
Yeah, right.
And
he likes appetizers, which is part of his problem. He needs to chill a little bit. But
let me ask you this. So my big thing is, if I was a Pirate fan, and I happen to be one, oddly enough, if they come out of the winter meetings and nothing happens, I'm Joe Pirate fan sitting out there, Gary.
Yeah.
Nothing has happened. How should I feel as Joe Pirate fan? How what do you say to Joe Pirate fan at that point?
I would imagine that they're probably already feeling like that the team is doing nothing, and I don't think that a week is going to change that much. So
yeah, okay.
If nothing happens, I think that it's more of the same. I think it'll just amp up slowly week over week until they finally do something. And all I can really say is we do have a little bit of history with this GM. We've seen him make most of his moves a little bit more into December, I would say, even a little bit into after Christmas. I've seen a lot of his bigger moves come in that period of time. You got to take the moves when they're there too. I think it's fair to say a lot of trade targets don't necessarily make themselves apparent until teams start signing free agents. You may not even think a team wants to upgrade a position. And then you find them sign somebody that plays a position that you had no idea they were going to upgrade, and all of a sudden this other guy becomes expendable. The Padres just did that.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, that based on certain moves and the way the dominoes fall, you may see somebody that wasn't expendable before now become expendable, and you have to be willing to jump on that. Will they? That's
sure.
The big
well,
question.
let's say a team, and I don't have it right in front of me, so this is just a brainstorm. But let's say a team that's already like fairly set at first base. They feel good about first base, and then they go.
So not the Pirates.
Yeah, for sure, not the Pirates. And then they go and take a swing at Pete Alonso, and they trade for Pete Alonso, and they bring him in and they extend him. And now that first baseman they had that they were set with they were pretty happy with the production they were getting out of that first baseman. Well, they have options. Either he becomes a DH or they move him, you know?
Right.
And so you got to look for things like that to start to crop up as things fall off the board. And sometimes when you're going to be trade reliant, you do got to be more patient because you need to wait for some of those cracks to start to develop.
I was just going to say, like, when you're talking checkbook, which we know the Pirates don't have, and either willingly or market wise, and trades, one's more simple than the other. Trades take a good bit of time sometimes. I hate to say that because I feel like it's just kind of, I'm not trying to placate anybody. I'm just saying, like, it takes time for trades to come together sometimes.
Yeah. I'll also say one of the targets that I most expected them to work with is the Marlins. And they laid a lot of track with the Marlins last year. And now that entire regime has changed. So I don't know if it's back to square one on some of the things that they've talked about as far as like things that each side were interested in the past. But when you lose something like that, this is something just people don't think about. It's not just Kim is gone from Miami. Oh, they'll find a new one and they move on. Well, yeah, they do. But now you're starting with a brand new entity. You don't go in with the history of the conversations you had with that person and the players that they hold dear and what they value and what they don't value. Maybe you have somebody that, like, when you're going to trade them a catcher, all the defensive metrics in the world don't really move the needle for them. For them, it's really all about how they handle the bat. And you could go into this guy and sell him up and down on what a terrific defender Andy Rodriguez is going to be, and they're going to go, yeah, but I want the bat. What's Henry about? And if you get blindsided with something like that, when you kind of thought you had one thing going in, and then you get changed because the conversations weren't there, losing those GM meetings and changes around the league, like even with Boston, things like that it just changes the dynamic. And you've taken a couple teams that Ben Cherington's very familiar with now and upturned the apple cart. Boston is one of his go-tos for moves. Well, that whole chain of command is different now. In fact, the Pirates have taken somebody from their system in that exchange. The Marlins have just changed over. There's a lot of teams that are in flux right now, and I just think that you got to be patient if you think trades are going to be a big driver, and I do. So
yeah, that's really what I was trying to get at, is like with trades, there's a lot of moving pieces with that. We've heard even with like Toronto, speaking of Cherington familiarity, and they, from what I've heard, are even in the Ohtani sweepstakes. Well, once that doesn't happen, which I don't expect it to, then things change once again.
right.
So, Gary, can you think of, as a baseball nerd, I can't think of many more things that would be more interesting to be in winter meetings and hear all the conversations and how that dynamic plays out. I think it would be fascinating.
I mean, I'd love to, just because of the sheer curiosity of it. Just the same way I'd like to sit in on a conversation between a president and a leader from another country. I want to see. Right. I want to see what actually gets said in those rooms. And
we need to get. Here's what we need to do. We need to find the bartenders that are at these hotels or at the hotel and get the scoop, because I guarantee you they would.
I mean, they probably get tipped very well, Jim, and I'm not sure that you and I, being Pirates fans, have the funds to get this intel. But
no, but if Nutting has to tip, maybe they've pissed them off enough where, maybe there'll be some revenge there.
Billy would like to know what we think of Munoz. We don't think much of Munoz, honestly, Billy. I think it's just a depth signing. It's probably not of consequence until it is. I mean, he's going to get a shot in spring training just like anybody else to win a position in the bullpen, and if he does, he does. And I tend to not get too excited about the obvious bullpen moves, really. And they just lost Hatch as a guy that I think they really thought was depth. So it makes total sense they'd go out and try to get some more. That's about all. As far as the NL Central, though, Jim, I'm not that daunted yet. I mean, the Cubs are in on things. The Cubs have some young players coming that I think could probably scare the bejesus out of us before too long. But the Cubs have some work to do to replace Cody Bellinger. I mean, Cody Bellinger was unbelievable last year for that team.
Mm-hmm.
To just lose him, I mean, I'm sorry. It's hard for me to look at anything else until you replace him. And same with Stroman, really, who, I don't even think is that great. But that's two pretty mighty big pieces to be sitting here pretending like the Cubs didn't take a physical step back, because they did.
They have money to spend.
Sure.
But they're in the same boat that a lot of teams are, which is they haven't spent it yet. They have holes. They are losing certain guys. I think the Pirates still can make some headway. Will it be enough in that division? I don't know. We just have to see how it plays out. I would just say that, like, I have fun with it on Twitter too, about they're not doing anything and
yeah.
whatever, because I just think it's funny, it's entertaining. Talk to us after the holidays, and then maybe we'll see how that plays out. There's still time. It
really depends on how quickly things start to move too. Like if they start falling off the board, we're like
the big piece is at the winter meetings. Really, those dominoes have to fall.
Yeah, and I would say, like, we're not talking about Ohtani here, or even necessarily Juan Soto trade, because those two things, they're going to happen. They're independent events. They're seismic events.
They're in a vacuum.
But in a weird way, they're in a vacuum. They're not going to have an effect on everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking more towards like hey, where's Jordan Montgomery go? You start seeing somebody like a Michael Wacha sign somewhere, then I'm going to be like, oh, whoa. Okay, that's in our pond now. Like,
right.
That's our carp. You stay out of that.
yeah. That's don't get all up in our Michael Wacha.
Yeah, but if pitchers start falling off the board, like left and right, like the mid-tier pitchers and whatnot, and you'll have sometimes those 6-7 hour periods where like you're on Twitter and you just see boom, 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 all these pitchers just coming off the board. Yeah, I'm gonna panic. I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm gonna panic. And for all I know, Ben Cherington's got a Michael Soroka like trade lined up where he's moving some scrap iron for 5 starters. I'll panic. I'm just telling you right now, that's my barometer, man. When I start seeing those guys come off the board.
Yeah, and I guess the question I would ask fans right now is like, no one's happy with the current state. I'm not, you're not. Stuff's got to happen, right? We've got.
Yep.
They have to upgrade. But what would make you happy today? And where is your bar? For me, what I would say to that is, I would feel a lot better, Gary, if we had one signing under our belt and we're working toward other things, maybe in the trade market and things of that nature. But I don't know if that would even satisfy Pirate fans, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
The last thing I can say is, if you really are going to play in the free agent market, show them a reason to believe. And
Which
what I
is
mean
kind
by
of what I'm getting at.
what I mean by that is there's a few ways they could go about that, Jim. You can make a trade to bring in something that obviously improves the team and shows everybody that that's going to happen, right? Hey, the Pirates are freaking serious. Look at that dude they just traded for, right?
Yeah.
I think something like that speaks to a free agent, and then you go and approach them and you offer them a fair wage. Let's not try to talk about undercutting everybody, okay? Because I just don't think you're going to get away with it in today's social media driven market where everybody knows what everyone gets offered, okay? Within dollars sometimes. You're just not going to sneak by underpaying somebody, okay?
Right.
So let's just pretend that they pay a nice fair market value for a player and offer it to them. Well, if you've just made a trade for somebody that they know is going to be a good player for this team and the team is on general upswing, maybe they're a little more interested than they would be if you approach them right now before you've done anything. So to me, that's the main incentive to get out there and start doing something, not to placate the fans, but maybe to start laying down the message to everybody in the league that you're more serious. You really want to approach. When I go and approach somebody about a trade, I want them to know I just pulled one off. I'm ready.
Right. You
Yeah.
have to be able. It's not necessarily like you said, making the fans comfortable. It's that players know. Players know when people are serious and that teams are serious. And so if you are serious and you make a move, then the next one you make, you can say, "Hey, you know how we're telling you we're serious. This is look what we just did.
Sure.
We would love for you to be a part of that."
And another thing they could do, they could go and very, very loudly sign Mitch Keller or very loudly sign O'Neill Cruz or something along those lines. Anything else they can do just to lock down more of the core, make sure that the league and the players understand you're trying. You know, I just think it's about optics to a degree as far as getting the ball rolling on some of this stuff. And last year, I think we saw that, Jim. I think, they went out and made that trade for Choi. I know that was an insignificant move in the greater scheme of things, but he was a real ready-made Major League Baseball player that played at a position of need. They went out and addressed it really quickly. And almost like right after it, Carlos Santana, and then boom, and then Rich Hill, and then man, they just went on a tear after they got those couple guys in place because I think the league saw, oh, okay, they're trying to do something here, And I think it came together pretty nicely for them. You got to do that sort of thing. You have to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I think you have to let somebody know that you're serious stepping it up from that this year. And so, if that was your level last year, now you've said what you've said. Well, this is the level you have to operate at now to get to that next level. And I will tell people this, trust me, if we are sitting here in January and February, it's time to drop the hammer. I'm not doing it on December 1st. I'm just not. You know what I mean? Like,
I know what you mean, but I don't even know what that means. Like, I'm not sure what we're gonna drop on them. I mean,
I'm just saying about the expectations and that they didn't do anything.
I thought we were going top rope from the rotunda. I didn't know what we were doing here.
Well, I dropped the hammer, top rope, whatever cliche we want to use. What I am saying is like, I'm not doing that on December 1st. There is a date where we will do that. But even though it's the Pirates, you're going to have to be reasonable with the way the market is and how things play out.
Yeah. That said, if there's like 17 of those pitchers signed next week, I'll be on this show next Thursday screaming.
Well, I'm saying, if it happens that quickly.
There is no timeline for when I'm going to get to that point. To me, it's really about a pool of players I know they need to play in. That's
true.
All. Like,
it's way more about when it happens with the players.
Yeah. But and if I tell that kid to go out and play in the mud puddles and he comes back with clean shoes, I'm going to know he didn't do anything. And that's what I'm looking at Ben Cherington right now. I need to see you splashing around in those puddles. That's what has to happen.
Yeah.
That's all. But hey, Jim, long talk, good stuff. Late night
Yeah.
bucking. This is one of our best attended chats ever. So thank you so much. This was awesome. And super cool that you were all here for it. And Ben's probably tired from playing hockey already today, but we're going to let him toss the show off like he always does anyway. And for those on video, I'll do it for you. Let's go, Bucks.